The Watership Down Podcast is intended for listeners who are familiar with the plot. There definitely will be spoilers. This episode is scripted, narrated, recorded and edited by Newell Fisher. Hello, and welcome to the Watership Down Podcast, episode 204, in which we will be looking at the portrayal of Hazel in the remainder of the original 1972 novel of Watership Down. There is no barrow keeping this week, so let's get straight back to it. The portrayal of Hazel in the second half of the original novel. Left on his own, Hazel would undoubtedly have died in the land drain he managed to crawl into after being shot escaping from Nuthanger Farm. He lies helpless, drifting in and out of consciousness for the remainder of that night and for most of the next day. When he hears Fiver's voice next to him, he tries to ignore it at first, having gone through the worst of his suffering. It is easier just to die there. He finds himself back in the ditch, and only then does he start to realise that Fiver and Blackberry have risked their lives to come and find him. In the worst pain he has ever experienced, Hazel manages, with their encouragement, to make it 3/4 of a mile in blazing heat to the foot of the hill, where he collapses in exhaustion in the ditch where they first heard the delirious Holly arrive at the down. This ditch, which I definitely will find one day, is beginning to become a field hospital for the Warren. Later, Bigwig arrives, and then Keehar, who takes out the little black stones in Hazel's leg, or shotgun pellets. Hazel stays at the foot of the hill for 3 days, during which he has a very deep conversation with Fiver about the nature of the supernatural and the other world. Holly, having recovered from his journey back from the Warren to the south, has come down the hill to repeat his terrible tale of Ephrafa and General Woundwort that Hazel missed the first time round. And now, as he recovers, Hazel has a lot of thinking to do. He knows now that his expedition to Nuthanger Farm was very misguided, but Holly points out it has got them 2 does, though they are having a hard time adapting to Warren life. And now Hazel is thinking that they should try something even more foolhardy than Nuthanger Farm. They are going to get does out of Ephrafa. Holly understandably counsels strongly against this. Hazel asks Blackberry to devise a trick that will enable them to get the does out. This plan must achieve 3 things: get the does out, break up any pursuit, and get all of them away so they cannot be followed. He also wisely consults Fiver, who crucially has no misgivings about the idea as yet. Blackberry says he will discuss the matter with him. As Hazel returns, still limping, to the down, he is jostled and play-fought with as a welcome. He talks with the new does about settling in, and also to Strawberry, who had a very hard time of it on the return from Ephrafa after they escaped. That afternoon, Hazel calls a meeting to inform the Warren they will be returning to Ephrafa. Again, Holly speaks out strongly against the idea, but Fiver is still feeling okay about it. And then Blackberry arrives to say Keehar has improved on the plan a lot. Hazel has made the harsh leadership decision that the plan will be kept a secret so that it cannot be tortured out of any of them who are captured. They will all only find out what they need to know when they need to know it. He also sharply rebukes Bluebell when he jokes about the plan involving Bigwig driving a Frudido, with good reason, because Bluebell's joke has hinted at the actual plan. Hazel then goes to speak with Keehar, who confirms he will help them. But it has to happen soon, as he wants to get back to the Peak Vaulter. They set off for Ephrafa early the next day, with Bluebell replacing Buckthorn in a party that is otherwise identical to the 11 rabbits who left Sandalford. Silver is the only rabbit of the first expedition who is going back. Hazel divides them into 3 groups, led by himself, Bigwig and Silver. During one longer break, Hazel meets with Fiver, Bigwig and Blackberry, and tells Bigwig the plan, that he will be going into Ephrafa. Bigwig thinks he is more suited to fighting than espionage, but Hazel insists that he is the only one who can do it. He tries to take Bigwig's mind off things by asking him to scout out Caesar's belt, calling him Fefa-Ra, King of Cats, after his bravery at Nuthanger. He also informs Silver that they are not actually going to Ephrafa, but are going to hide near it, skirting round to the west along the belt. By now Silver reckons they are in wide patrol range of Ephrafa. Keehar finds them with news of the warren, and Hazel asks him to advise on a hiding place. Immediately, Keehar recommends the river on the far side of the Iron Road. As they rest, Bigwig insists on hearing the story of Elachara and the Black Rabbit of Inlay. When Hazel suggests that might not be appropriate, Bigwig snarls at him, and Hazel lets it go. As the story ends, the news comes that a fox has been spotted. Hazel has never seen a fox, but knows he has not been cautious enough. His attempt to get them away quietly is interrupted by Bigwig barging past and going to draw the fox away. Hazel is very angry at this unnecessary action, taken by a rabbit they can ill afford to lose. On Bigwig's return, after they think they hear him killed, Hazel wants to dress him down in front of the group, but Fiver urges him to get the others away as they're going Tharn. A little later, he learns from Bigwig of his leading the fox onto an Ephratham wide patrol. When Silver tells him they are closer to Ephratham than he thought, Hazel says they will skirt around it to the Iron Road. They are tired and stressed, so he realises they can't skirt too far around and need to be fast. Here, the Iron Road is in a coombe or valley, and they cross it just in time as Keehar arrives to warn of a wide patrol nearby. After resting, Hazel realises that his injury is bothering him again, which isn't really surprising. Keehar is scouting out the area, and Hazel is impatient to get across the river. He is beginning to think that he may have pushed his luck this time. What if Holly was right? Arriving at the river Test, Hazel is nervous that the environment is too alien for rabbits to stay there during the mission. He is suffering from serious self-doubt, and his leg is hurting is not helping. Fiver has to reassure him that they will be fine. With Fiver and Keehar's help, they get the party across the river and to relative safety. And now comes the next part of the plan. Finding a way of getting away from the Ephrathams when the time comes. And herein lies a considerable weakness in Hazel's decision-making. He has brought almost the entire warren a long way into hostile terrain to carry out a dangerous mission with no idea how they will get away. Perhaps, in the circumstances, the idea from the Netflix series of just going into the nearby town of Overton wasn't so crazy after all, except that in the original story they have no idea it is there, and in the actual landscape the town is considerably further away. Fortunately, with the help of Blackberry, Fiver and Keehar, they do come up with a plan when they find the punt. With characteristic lack of ego, Hazel tells Bigwig it is time, and hands the leadership over to him for the duration of his mission into Ephratham. Hazel's role in the story now fades into the background, as Bigwig carries out his incredibly dangerous mission to infiltrate Ephratham. When after 2 nights, Bigwig fails to show up at the railway arch at sunset when he told Keehar he would, Hazel has a very difficult decision to make. Fiver advises that they sit tight and wait for another message at dawn the next day. Hazel is acting under the most difficult of circumstances, trying to work out what their temporary leader Bigwig wants them to do with no concrete information. This is the fog of war, where decisions have to be made with inadequate information, decisions that, if made wrongly, could cost lives. Bigwig may be temporary leader, but this mission was Hazel's idea, and he will feel responsible for any losses. He says to Pipkin that if Bigwig does not come out of Ephratham the next day, he will go in. What would his plan be for this? Or would it just be a suicide mission to try to recover his honour? In one of the most bizarre storylines of the 1999 TV series, Hazel and Fiver do indeed go into Ephratham. Was this a reference to what Hazel says here? The following day, Keehar brings back a minimal message from Bigwig that he should come back tonight. Hazel dare not have his rabbits wait up at the Iron Road any longer than necessary. Blackberry suggests waiting on the other side of the river until Keehar brings word that he has attacked the sentries. Then they will get to the arch at speed. And now Hazel has to take some hard advice from his companions. With his leg the way it is, and with his side talent of being able to chew through almost anything, he needs to stay with the punt while the others link up with Bigwig and any escapees from Ephratham. He reluctantly agrees, but repeats that he will go and find Bigwig himself if he is not found soon. Hazel gets to work on the rope until it is so thin he feels the need to hold on to it. The storm breaks, and he is drenched in rain as thunder and lightning begin. And then does start to arrive at the riverbank in dribs and drabs. Blackberry tries to persuade them to get on the boat as Hazel holds on to the rope, but it is only the arrival of Bigwig at last that persuades them. And then Woundwort arrives with his Owsla, and Hazel sees him for the first time. Dandelion is missing. With the does aboard, Hazel dares to speak, saying he will have to be left behind. Bigwig asks for a few moments, and his taunting of Woundwort gives Dandelion a chance to rush aboard. The rope parts, possibly with a final bite from Hazel, and the punt drifts away down the test. And crucially, not one Afrafan is given the impression that the average-looking rabbit holding the rope was the leader of this audacious group of rabbits. That wasn't by design, but it will turn out to have been a very good idea. In a moment I don't think I had taken in before, the exhausted Bigwig calls Hazel Ra. Perhaps he thought this was the day he stopped fighting. Hazel briefly debriefs Bigwig, hearing the term Auslaffer for the first time, and saying what a story this will make in the future. But in truth, he is not in charge for now. The river is, and they are very exposed. He consults Blackberry, who says humans avoid rain. Then Keehar arrives to warn of an approaching bridge. Just in time, Hazel tells them all to crouch down low as they pass under it. Acorn falls on Hazel, and one of the does is injured. Hazel sees that the river has broadened and slowed. And then there is another bridge, and this time the punt becomes stuck broadside on by one of its arches. The only way off the boat is to swim under the arch, which Hazel is understandably reluctant to have them do. Keehar reassures him they will be okay, which seems easy for him to say. Hazel is at a loss as to what to do. Seeing Bigwig so exhausted has made his courage fail. Fiver begins to save him by volunteering to swim first, and then men arrive, crossing the bridge above. Luckily they do not see them. That forces Hazel's hand. Leading by example, he jumps in first, with loyal Pipkin joining him, and he discovers that Keehar was right. Going under the bridge is frightening, but on the other side you reach the bank easily. With an Afrafan rabbit called Blackavar having joined them, Hazel crosses the bridge and tells them all to swim. This takes some time, with Bigwig being escorted through last. The following morning, after a long rest, they discovered that Thraon Losa, the doe who was struck by the bridge, has died. Hazel decides they should set off immediately, which is reinforced by them being spotted by another man. There seem to be a lot of them here. Keehar takes his leave to return to the Pigvata. Travelling back north, Hazel comes to rely on Blackavar a great deal under Bigwig's supervision. After a couple of days, Hazel decides they should rest. However, Fiver is nervous, and Blackavar says this is fox country and that no Afrafan wide patrol would stop here. This results in tension with the injured Bigwig, and Hazel has to make a decision. On balance, he decides they should rest and dig scrapes, and after a night they all feel the better for it. But Hazel is tired overall. His injured leg has been bothering him. These are the exact circumstances in which a leader is likely to make poor decisions, and you could argue Hazel is doing exactly that. The taking of another doe by the fox, who they spotted on the way to Afrafa, proves Blackavar all too right. And then, as they make a final approach to Watership Down, they are accosted by 4 Afrafans, one of whom is the elite tracker Captain Campion. All Campion sees is a lame rabbit who he speaks with, along with the traitors Bigwig and Blackavar. But then the rest of the group arrive. Campion tries bluffing that he has more rabbits, and that all the does must go with him, so Hazel calls his bluff. Blackavar quietly says to Hazel that they must be killed rather than report back to Afrafa. Hazel has been weighing this up in his mind, but the thought of the kind of fight it would be is too much. Many of them would be injured, some might die, and they would leave a blood trail for the rest of their journey. When all the does have gone past, he tells Campion to go. This, you might argue, is Hazel's last mistake, and it nearly costs them everything, for Campion tracks them back to Watership Down and returns to Afrafa. On their return to the Down, all seems well. Hazel begins to feel like a fraud as a chief rabbit. Things are so easy, and they begin to plan for winter. And then, one evening, Dandelion tells a tale about a dog called Rousby Woof. Afterwards, they get into a casual conversation with the mouse Hazel saved from a hawk. In passing, it comments on other rabbits nearby. Only Hazel picks up on this. He presses the mouse to tell him more and sends Holly and Blackavar to check. They return in blind panic with the news of the arrival of the Afrafan Great Patrol. Hazel had just learned of the birth of the new Warren's first kittens. That moment of positivity is destroyed by this news. He should be feeling despair. He should be wishing he had killed Campion and his Y Patrol. Blackavar urges leaving straight away, but Hazel shows immediate resolve. They have been through too much to leave now. He orders the holes filled in with one left open where Kihar used to rest in the wood. Hazel scatters as much of Kihar's guano about as he can. The Efrathans don't know he has gone. And then Hazel decides to do what he does best. Try to bring out the best in others. Leaving Bigwig in charge, he decides to risk his life talking to Woundwort and to try to persuade him to leave. Not only that, but to try to persuade him to form an alliance with Watership Down. We hear of this meeting from Woundwort's perspective. He has no idea who this rabbit is, but recognises him from the river. Crucially, when he asks if Flaley sent him, the rabbit just says he is a friend of Flaley, which doesn't actually answer the question. Has Hazel deliberately avoided lying while not actually saying he is Chief Rabbit? Or was this just a lucky chance? Either way, Woundwort is left certain that Bigwig is Chief Rabbit, which at this particular moment he is. Briefly, this enigmatic, persuasive, limping rabbit tempts Woundwort to be a better leader. But then, rejecting Campion's offer to kill Hazel, he reverts to his usual nature, telling Hazel his brutal terms before turning his back on him. We rejoin the action some time later, with the warren besieged and the Efrathans digging their way into the honeycomb from above. Hazel reasons that the digging will tire them out and blunt their claws. Bigwig's plan to get everyone into the sleeping burrows is a sound one, but it is still a last stand tactic. They are trapped, and Hazel is now very much planning for a last stand, having seemingly decided that their new home is worth dying for. There is no grand plan this time. Bigwig's courage, indeed his enthusiasm for the fight, is inspirational, but beyond that they face a grim end. This is the climax of Hazel's leadership. The only two moments that come close to it are his original decision to leave Sandalford and his decision to return to Ephrafa. Hazel begins to quietly despair. After all they have been through, this cannot be how it ends, surely. He has the brief thought that the only hope lies in some disaster befalling the Efrathans from outside, but that isn't going to happen. He finds himself next to Fiver, whose fear seems to be getting the better of him. And then Fiver is in some kind of fit, during which he suddenly barks like a dog. Barks like a disaster from outside. Hazel is taken back to the banks of the Enborn, to a dog loose in the wood. And El Herrera shows him what to do. He remembers where the nearest dog is, and immediately thinks of a way in which it could be led from Nuthanger Farm to Watership Down. He orders Bigwig to get everyone behind a blocked run and defend it with his life, and he takes two fast and quick-witted rabbits with him, Dandelion and Blackberry. When they reach the lane at the foot of the down, he tells the intelligent Blackberry to wait there. It will be him who has to lead the dog all the way up the scarp slope to the warren, going to ground in Kihar's burrow. The faster Dandelion has the simpler task. He will have to draw the dog away from the farm before it starts to tire, so it will require his exceptional speed. All he has to do is lead it to Blackberry and go to ground. Reaching the farmyard, Hazel tells Dandelion to stay in plain view of the dog, which is asleep. He gets to work on the dog's rope, but suddenly he sees a cat that has spotted Dandelion. Instinctively he stamps an alarm. This wakes the dog and assures Dandelion is missed by the cat. The dog sees Dandelion, strains the rope, which breaks, and is gone after him. Hazel lands badly on his injured leg, but can move. And then the cat is on him. We do not hear Hazel's perspective on what follows, but we can guess. Having been about to be killed by the cat, he cries out in understandable terror. And then suddenly there is a human girl who fights the cat for its prey. Hazel goes completely Tharn as the huge creature holds him in a vice-like grip. Then a deeper-voiced human male talks with the girl. He finds himself in a dark space inside the farmhouse, and then in a wire cage. What lies ahead of him is either death at the hands of the humans, or a life as a hutch rabbit. He will never know what became of his companions, or of Woundwort. Hazel must be in complete despair. Hours later, the girl grabs him again. Then another man begins to poke at him, and especially at his injured leg. This must be it. He is going to be eaten by humans, arguably the preferable fate. But before doing so, there is one last horror. Hazel finds himself inside a hoodoo with his 2 human killers. After a short while it stops. This must be where he will be killed. The 2 humans take him a short way and he is placed on the ground. And then they just stare at him. He cannot believe what is happening. They are letting him go? Why? It makes no sense. These are humans, the creatures who destroyed his birthplace, who nearly killed Bigwig and drove an entire warren insane with fear. They are from the same place where he was shot when he rescued 3 of their hutch rabbits. How does this make sense? Hazel recovers his wits and bolts before they change their minds. He returns to Watership Down from the west and is met by an overjoyed Fiver and Pipkin. Hazel learns of the apparent success of his plan, including from the captured Efrafan Groundsel. He orders Holly to take a patrol and ensure the Efrafans are gone. And then he sees the appallingly injured Bigwig lying where he fell after the dog arrived on the down. Jokingly talking like Keha with him, it becomes clear Bigwig will live. And when Hazel says he has been in a hoodoo, the leading doe Heisenthale is shocked. Apparently, she had foreseen this in Efrafa. And Bigwig calls him Hazel Ra twice, after saying he truly is done with fighting. The promise of the lost paragraph is truly fulfilled. In the weeks that follow, Hazel gets at last to lead a warren with bucks and does. But there are also captured Efrafans, and Hazel is determined they will be integrated into the warren. One evening in October, there is a conversation in which Groundsel annoys Silver by asserting that Woundwort did not die on the down, but Hazel praises Efrafa, where Campion has now become Chief Rabbit, and speaks of establishing a new warren between there and Watership Down. What he proposed to Woundwort in that desperate moment before the battle is now coming to fruition. They come upon the doe Vilthuril telling a story to her kittens that sounds vaguely familiar to Hazel. And then, after the kittens mob Hazel, one of them, Thrayar, displays an ability to sense danger that he has inherited from his father Fiver, an ability that should stand them in very good stead. For this is a warren where a runt like Fiver gets to live a decent life, and that, surely, is all Hazel wanted from the very start. Hazel lives a very long life for a wild rabbit. The warren between Watership Down and Efrafa thrives. And at the end, when all he knew from Sandalford, Cowslip's warren and Efrafa are no longer alive, he ends up, like the Thrayar, a wise old chief rabbit with a sentry outside his burrow. And one morning in March, he is visited by Elachera himself, who unsurprisingly wishes Hazel to join his Owsler. Going outside, he leaves his body lying on the ground. Elachera reassures him that his warren will be all right without him. Hazel senses his energy flowing into them, and with his new chief, who says he will show him what he means, for the last time, he leaves Watership Down. So that is the original account of the life of Hazel, the seemingly unusual rabbit who became a great leader. He was not perfect by any means, but managed to avoid the pitfalls of leadership to an impressive degree, because when all is said and done, what motivated him was love and not hate. Because when an animal, be they human or rabbit, is forced to live a life dominated by fear, the temptation to give in to hatred is very strong. He could be extremely ruthless and was prepared to ensure that others died brutal deaths. But this was never an attempt to just sadistically dominate for the pleasure of doing so. It was always to protect those he loved. The word love is not used in Watership Down to refer to the way rabbits feel about one another. But that, surely, is what it amounts to in a truly great leader. Next time, we look at the portrayal of Hazel from the 1978 film to the 1996 book Tales from Watership Down.